Lily Foster's heart was filled with quiet anticipation as she strolled through the grand corridors of Starlight Mall, the premier shopping destination in the city. She had looked forward to this day for weeks. Life as a mother, a dedicated corporate executive, and the wife of a well-known philanthropist, Andrew Foster, kept her incredibly busy. But today was different. It was a rare day off, and she was determined to indulge in a little self-care. The mall was a symbol of elegance, radiating an atmosphere of luxury that Lily felt she deserved to bask in, if only for a few hours. The soft glow of ambient lights and the faint sound of classical music created a calming effect, a peaceful escape from her hectic life. As she moved from one boutique to another, she let herself enjoy the rich textures, beautiful designs, and polished displays that seemed to promise a life of beauty and sophistication. In one boutique, a stunning sapphire blue dress caught her eye. It was displayed on a mannequin that seemed to radiate confidence and elegance, qualities that Lily herself often felt but had been longing to reconnect with. She imagined herself wearing the dress to an upcoming charity gala, turning heads and feeling her best. The dress was perfect, both bold and refined, a piece that would make her stand out with grace. With a gentle smile, she approached the counter where a tall, impeccably dressed salesman, Ryan, stood arranging items with an air of precision. He looked up as she approached, his eyes momentarily sweeping over her before he plastered on a smile. "May I help you, ma'am?" he asked, his tone polite but slightly cold. "Yes, that dress," Lightly said, pointing toward the display. "It's absolutely beautiful. I'd love to try it on." Ryan's eyes narrowed slightly as he glanced from the dress to Lily. "It is one of our more exclusive pieces," he replied, his tone now carrying the subtle but unmistakable edge. "Are you sure you want this one? It's quite a statement." Lily paused, her smile fading as she felt a flicker of discomfort. She brushed it off, thinking maybe she was overreacting. "Unsure," she said firmly, meeting his gaze. "Could you please let me try it on?" Ryan let out a barely audible sigh, as though her request was an inconvenience. He moved to retrieve the dress, handing it to her with a faint smirk. "Just be careful with it," he said, his words dripping with a condescension that Lily didn't miss. Taking the dress, Lily felt a slight prick of annoyance. She brushed it off, determined not to let a rude salesman spoil her day. She entered the fitting room, slipping into the beautiful blue fabric that hugged her figure perfectly. She looked at herself in the mirror, feeling an empowering confidence begin to rise within her. This dress wasn't just an outfit, it was a statement, a reflection of her strength, her grace, and her worth. Feeling a renewed sense of pride, Lily stepped out of the fitting room to show the dress to Ryan. She hoped that perhaps he would see her confidence and beauty, that he would understand why she chose this dress. But his reaction was far from what she expected. Ryan's eyes looked her up and down, his expression tinged with disdain. "Well," he said, smirking, "it's a bold look, but maybe it's not quite suitable for you." Lily's heart sank as she registered his words. His tone wasn't just critical, it was mocking, as though he found the idea of her in this dress amusing. She felt her face flush, embarrassment mixing with anger. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, her voice steady but edged with tension. Ryan shrugged, clearly unbothered. "This dress is meant for a certain type of clientele. It's one of our most exclusive items, after all," he replied, as though that explanation justified his contempt. "Perhaps another store would have something more suitable for your style." Lily's mouth dropped open, and a surge of indignation flared within her. She had been looking forward to this moment, this small luxury of feeling beautiful and appreciated, only to be met with such arrogance. She took a deep breath, determined to keep her composure. "I don't think it's your place to decide who's suitable for this dress," she said, her voice firm. Ryan merely smirked, his gaze full of judgment. "I'm just saying, we have standards here, and I want to make sure our items go to the right people." He stepped closer, and with a shocking lack of respect, tugged on a part of the fabric at her shoulder. There was a tearing sound, and Lily gasped as she felt the fabric rip. "There," he sneered as though he proved his point. "Maybe that's more fitting for you." Lily felt as though the ground had been ripped out from beneath her. She stood there, humiliated, feeling the eyes of other customers turning toward her, some watching with curiosity, others quickly looking away. Her heart pounded in her chest, her mind racing with disbelief and shame. She had never been treated with such disrespect, and the sting of this unwarranted humiliation cut deep. But Lily wasn't alone. Just as she struggled to find her voice, feeling crushed and exposed, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd. Her husband, Michael, who had finished a meeting nearby, had come to join her for lunch. He saw her standing there, the torn dress, the look of hurt in her eyes, and he immediately understood that something was very wrong. "Lily," he said, his voice filled with concern as he placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. He glanced at Ryan, his expression darkening as he sensed the arrogance emanating from the salesman. "What happened?" Lily's voice trembled as she explained the encounter, each word a reminder of the disdain she had been subjected to. She could barely get through the story without her voice breaking, the memory of Ryan's sneer and the sound of the tearing dress echoing in her mind. Michael's face grew tense, his jaw clenching as he listened. When she finished, he looked at Ryan, his gaze filled with a quiet fury that made the salesman step back. "You think you can humiliate my wife and get away with it," he said, his voice cold and steely. "You've made a huge mistake." Ryan's arrogance began to waver, his smirk faltering as he realized that this wasn't just a simple matter anymore. He opened his mouth to respond, but Michael cut him off with a warning glare. "You're going to pay for that dress," Michael said, his voice low but firm, "and you're going to apologize to my wife." Ryan scoffed, trying to maintain his air of superiority, but he was clearly shaken. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, the confidence he had displayed moments ago rapidly fading. "Then maybe we need to talk to your manager," Michael replied, his voice filled with an authority that left no room for argument. As the confrontation escalated, other shoppers stopped to watch, their expressions filled with shock and a growing sense of justice. Ryan's face turned pale as he realized he was losing control of the situation, and for the first time, he felt the consequences of his actions beginning to close in on him. The energy in the store shifted palpably as Michael's gaze bore into Ryan, who now looked visibly uneasy. The other customers, drawn by the tension, had gathered nearby, watching the encounter with a mix of fascination and support for Lily. This wasn't merely a shopping dispute anymore. It was a moment of justice, of accountability, and everyone could feel it. Lily stood beside Michael, her eyes focused on the floor as she tried to regain her composure. She felt the weight of humiliation still pressing heavily on her, but with Michael by her side, she felt a sense of strength begin to return. She was no longer alone in this fight. The dress, still torn at the shoulder, seemed to symbolize her resilience as she straightened her posture, determined to see this through. Michael took a deep breath, his face a mask of controlled anger. He turned back to Ryan, who was fidgeting uncomfortably, attempting to maintain his arrogant demeanor, but failing miserably. "You insulted my wife, humiliated her, and damaged a dress that she was interested in purchasing. You've crossed every line of decency," Michael said, his voice calm but filled with a quiet fury. Ryan shifted his weight, attempting to muster some semblance of defiance. "I don't see what the issue is. I was just doing my job, ensuring that our high-end items are treated appropriately," he retorted, though his tone lacked the confidence he had displayed moments ago. "Your job?" Michael scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "You think it's part of your job to degrade and mistreat customers because of your own misguided assumptions, to tear a dress off someone's shoulder because you don't think she's worthy enough to wear it." He leaned in slightly, his voice lowering to a deadly calm. "Let me tell you something, Ryan. My wife deserves far better than this, far better than you or anyone in this store could ever provide." Ryan swallowed hard, his arrogance slipping further away as he felt the piercing stares of the onlookers around him. He had grown accustomed to treating people however he pleased, believing himself untouchable within the confines of his store, but now he was beginning to realize the grave error he'd made. Just then, the store manager, a woman named Carla, stepped forward, alerted by the commotion and the gathering crowd. She was a petite, well-dressed woman in her 40s, with a no-nonsense look in her eyes. She quickly assessed the situation, her gaze shifting from Lily's torn dress to Michael's stern expression and finally to the visibly shaken Ryan. "Is there a problem here?" Carla asked, her voice crisp and professional. She had seen Ryan's arrogance in action before, but this was the first time she'd seen him cornered, and it was clear she was both curious and cautious. "Yes, there's a problem," Michael replied, his tone unwavering. "This man humiliated my wife, tore the dress she was trying on, and treated her with complete disrespect. We're not going to let this go." Carla's eyes widened slightly, and she turned to Ryan, a glimmer of irritation flashing in her expression. "Ryan, is this true?" she asked, her voice demanding and no longer friendly. Ryan, trying to recover some of his lost composure, shrugged. "I was just making sure our exclusive items are kept in pristine condition. I didn't think." "No, you didn't think," Carla interrupted, her voice hardening. "That's evident." She turned back to Michael and Lily, offering a slight, apologetic nod. "I'm deeply sorry for any disrespect you've experienced in our store. Please allow me to rectify this." Lily looked at Carla, her voice firm yet pained. This wasn't just an insult. It was an outright humiliation. "I came here to feel beautiful, to enjoy a moment of peace, and he made me feel worthless." Carla's face tightened with regret. "I can assure you, Mrs. Foster," Michael supplied, his tone steady. "Lily Foster." Carla's eyes widened slightly as she registered the name. She was well aware of the Foster family's influence, especially in the community. Andrew Foster was not only a wealthy businessman, but also a respected philanthropist who had made substantial contributions to local charities, including programs that supported underprivileged communities, a fact that seemed to make Ryan's actions even more reprehensible. "I assure you, Mrs. Foster, this is not representative of our store's values," Carla continued, attempting to salvage the situation. "Ryan will be disciplined appropriately. We don't tolerate discrimination or disrespect in any form." Michael gave a slight nod but didn't soften. "A disciplinary action doesn't erase the humiliation my wife endured in front of everyone here. And it certainly doesn't mend the dress he damaged." Carla glanced at the torn fabric of the beautiful blue dress, understanding that more was needed to make amends. She turned to Ryan, her expression one of final disappointment. "Ryan, please go to the back. We'll discuss your future with this company after I finish here." Ryan hesitated, his face filled with a mixture of resentment and fear, but under Carla's sharp gaze, he reluctantly turned and disappeared into the back of the store. Carla then returned her focus to Lily and Michael, taking a deep breath as she prepared to address them directly. "Mr. and Mrs. Foster, please accept my deepest apologies," she said, her voice now genuinely remorseful. "We'll cover the cost of the dress, as well as any additional items you'd like today. I know this can't fully undo the harm that's been done, but I hope it can be a small step toward making things right." Lily looked at Carla, her emotions still raw. The offer was generous, but it didn't erase the pain or the humiliation she had felt in that moment. She had hoped for a day of joy and peace, and instead, she had been reminded of the judgment she faced simply because of her appearance. However, she appreciated Carla's attempt at making amends. Michael placed a gentle hand on Lily's shoulder, offering silent support as she collected herself. "I appreciate your gesture," Lily finally replied, her voice regaining strength. "But this isn't just about a dress or a discount. This is about respect. And I expect that your store will implement changes to ensure that no one else has to experience what I did." Carla nodded, understanding the gravity of Lily's words. "I promise you, "Mrs. Foster, we will address this. I'll personally see to it that our staff undergoes training on how to treat every customer with respect and dignity." Michael, satisfied with Carla's response, gave a slight nod. "Thank you for taking responsibility," he said, his voice firm but calm. "We'll accept your offer, but know that we'll be following up to ensure that these changes are indeed made." With that, Carla escorted them to a private section of the store, where she arranged for new items to be brought to them. As Lily tried on a few dresses, she felt a sense of strength return, a reminder that she deserved to be treated with respect, no matter where she was or who she was with. The crowd around them gradually dispersed, and the whispers faded, but the encounter had left an indelible mark. As they prepared to leave, Carla approached them one last time, offering her card and a heartfelt apology once more. "Mrs. Foster, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly if there's anything else we can do," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. Lily accepted the card with a nod, her face softened but her resolve unwavering. She knew that today's experience had been a powerful reminder not only of her own strength, but of the importance of standing up for herself and others in moments of disrespect. Outside the store, Michael turned to her, his face filled with admiration. "You handled that with incredible grace, Lily," he said, squeezing her hand gently. "I'm so proud of you." Lily smiled, feeling the surge of warmth and love. "Thank you for standing by me," she replied, her voice filled with gratitude. "I don't know what I would have done without you." They left the mall, hand in hand, with a newfound sense of unity and strength. This day, which had started as a moment of humiliation, had transformed into a moment of empowerment. Lily knew she wouldn't forget it any time soon, and neither would Ryan, or the many people who had witnessed the events unfold. The car ride home was quiet, but it was a peaceful kind of silence, filled with shared understanding. Michael held Lily's hand as he drove, his grip firm and reassuring. Lily looked out the window, her mind drifting back over the events of the day. Though Carla's apology had felt sincere, the memory of Ryan's sneer and his demeaning words still lingered like an ugly stain she couldn't wash away. As they reached home, Lily took a deep breath, as if she were exhaling the bitterness of the encounter. But even as she did, she felt a spark of resolve. Ryan's actions had reminded her of how often people in positions of authority or service used their power to judge and demean without consequence. She knew that people like Ryan often went unchecked, his behavior a symptom of a larger problem. It wasn't just her who had faced humiliation today. It was anyone who didn't fit his narrow idea of deserving. Michael parked the car, and they both walked up to the front door. Before going inside, he turned to her, studying her face with concern. "Are you okay?" he asked gently. Lily smiled softly, grateful for his support. "I will be," she replied. "But I don't want this to just end here. People like him need to be held accountable, and this isn't just about me. I know there are so many people who go through the same thing and don't have the voice or the support to stand up for themselves." Michael nodded thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right, Lily. And we can do something about it. We have the means and the influence. Let's make sure that his actions, and the actions of people like him, don't go unnoticed." As they stepped into their home, the warmth of their shared resolve filled the space. Michael put down his keys and took out his phone, already drafting a plan in his mind. "I'll make a few calls. First, I'm going to reach out to the mall management and inform them of what happened. This isn't just an isolated incident, and they need to know what kind of person they're employing." Lily nodded, her eyes alight with determination. "And I'll reach out to a few media contacts I know. I want to shine a light on this, not to embarrass anyone, but to make it clear that discrimination and harassment are unacceptable, whether it happens in a high-end store or anywhere else." Michael admired her drive. Even when faced with adversity, she was focused not just on her own experience, but on the broader impact, on making a difference for others. "You know, if we make enough noise, "We could push for these stores to implement anti-discrimination training for their staff," he suggested. "It could be part of their standard practice." Lily's eyes brightened. "Yes, that's exactly the kind of lasting change I want. This isn't just about one man's actions. It's about creating a safer, more respectful experience for everyone." With a plan forming, Lily and Michael sat together, working late into the night. Michael contacted several prominent figures in their local community, those who held sway over the mall's business practices. Meanwhile, Lily drafted a letter addressed to both the mall management and the corporate headquarters of the store, detailing her experience in a clear and powerful narrative. She described not just the events but the emotions, her humiliation, her pain, and her resolve to prevent this from happening to others. Lily's words were powerful, each sentence written with the precision and poise of a seasoned lawyer, but carrying the raw emotion of a woman who had been wronged. She knew the impact that storytelling could have, and she wanted every reader to understand the indignity she had endured, not just as a singular experience, but as a symptom of a greater issue. The next morning, they sent out the letters, and Michael continued to leverage his connections. They'd reached out to a few journalists who had previously covered stories on discrimination and social justice. By mid-afternoon, several of them had already expressed interest in covering her story. Lily felt a mix of nerves and excitement. She had never intended to be in the spotlight, but she knew this was necessary. If her experience could bring about change, then it was worth the vulnerability. Within a few days, news of the incident began to circulate. The headline read, "Luxury Store Faces Backlash After Discriminatory Treatment of Black Female Customer." The article described Lily's experience in detail, quoting her words from the letter she had written. It went on to explain how this wasn't just a one-time event, but part of a larger pattern of mistreatment that many people faced in high-end retail environments. Social media quickly picked up on the story. Comments poured in from people who had experienced similar discrimination, sharing their own painful stories. Many thanked Lily for speaking up, for doing what they had felt powerless to do. Hashtags began trending, calling for accountability and respect in retail. Lily's heart swelled as she read the messages. For the first time, she felt that her pain was serving a greater purpose, giving a voice to countless others who had faced the same struggles. Meanwhile, the mall management and corporate headquarters of the store found themselves in a tight spot. The negative attention was impacting their reputation, and customers began to demand changes. They couldn't afford to ignore the growing call for action. Michael received a call from the mall's management team, requesting a meeting to discuss what could be done to address the situation and prevent it from happening again. Lily and Michael agreed to the meeting, but they were clear about their expectations. They wanted more than an apology. They wanted systemic change. They prepared thoroughly, determined to make their case with strength and clarity. On the day of the meeting, Lily wore a dress that symbolized her resilience. Simple yet elegant, powerful yet refined. As they entered the mall's office, the head of mall management, along with representatives from the store's corporate office, greeted them with subdued expressions. They understood the gravity of the situation and the importance of this meeting. "Mrs. Foster, Mr. Foster, thank you for coming in." The mall manager, Mr. Blake, began, his voice respectful. "First and foremost, I want to apologize for what you experienced. It's deeply concerning to us, and I assure you that this is not how we want our customers to feel when they come here." Lily nodded, maintaining her composure. "Thank you, Mr. Blake. I appreciate your words, but as you know, words aren't enough. I'm here because I believe we have a responsibility to ensure that no one else has to go through what I did." The representatives from the store's corporate office, clearly uncomfortable, offered their own apologies, explaining that Ryan had been placed on administrative leave pending further investigation. But Lily and Michael were focused on the bigger picture. "We need commitments," Michael said, his voice calm but firm. "Commitments that your staff will receive training on anti-discrimination, on treating every customer with dignity, no matter who they are or what they look like." Mr. Blake nodded, his expression serious. We agree. In fact, we're already in talks with a consultant to implement mandatory diversity and sensitivity training for all our employees, starting with this store and expanding to others. Lily's heart lifted. This was exactly what they had hoped for, a tangible, actionable change. Thank you, she said, her voice soft but resolute. And I'd also like a public statement from your store and the mall acknowledging the incident and affirming your commitment to treating all customers with respect. People need to see that you're taking responsibility. The store's representatives hesitated, but Mr. Blake quickly agreed. Consider it done, he said. We'll issue a statement, and we'll work with our marketing team to ensure that the message is clear. After the meeting, Lily and Michael left the office with a sense of victory. They had come to this mall days ago for a simple shopping trip, and now they were leaving as agents of change. Lily felt a renewed sense of confidence and pride, not just in herself, but in the power of standing up for what was right. A few weeks later, the mall held a press conference where they announced their new policies and commitment to customer respect and inclusion. They introduced mandatory training programs and publicly acknowledged Lily's bravery in bringing this issue to light. Lily watched from home, Michael by her side, as the conference aired on television. She felt a profound sense of accomplishment, knowing that her actions had set in motion a change that would protect and empower others. She knew that Ryan and those like him would think twice before mistreating someone again. In that moment, Lily understood the true meaning of resilience, not just surviving adversity, but transforming it into something meaningful. Her story had begun with humiliation, but it ended with empowerment and change, a testament to the power of courage and conviction. The days following the press conference felt surreal for Lily. She watched as the story spread beyond her immediate circle and even beyond her city. News outlets and social media platforms were buzzing with discussions about her experience and the importance of respect and equity in customer service. The incident had touched a nerve, and Lily found herself at the center of a movement she hadn't anticipated but fully embraced. After the press conference, the mall's official social media accounts shared their statement about the new policies, promising fair treatment and respect for every customer. The statement included a public apology to Lily and acknowledged that the incident with Ryan Fletcher had been a wake-up call for them. In the comments section, hundreds of people chimed in, expressing their support for Lily, sharing their own experiences with discrimination, and commending the mall for taking responsibility and implementing changes. But the most touching responses were from individuals who had felt voiceless in similar situations. A young woman named Carmen, who lived in a neighboring state, sent Lily a private message on social media, pouring out her gratitude and sharing her story. Carmen described a humiliating experience she'd had in a high-end store, where a sales clerk had openly questioned her ability to afford the items she was interested in. I never had the courage to stand up for myself, but seeing what you did makes me feel like I can change that, Carmen wrote. Thank you for being brave enough to do what I couldn't. Lily read Carmen's message with tears in her eyes, realizing just how profound the impact of her stand had been. Her actions had encouraged others to demand respect and to assert their own worth. The wave of support reminded her that even the smallest acts of courage could inspire change beyond what she could see or control. One evening, as she and Michael sat down for dinner, Michael looked across the table, a warm smile on his face. You know, you've started something big here, Lily, he said, his eyes filled with admiration. People are paying attention. They're realizing that they don't have to accept disrespect or discrimination. You've empowered them to demand more. Lily smiled, grateful for his support, but still processing the weight of her influence. I never expected things to turn out this way, but I'm glad they did, she replied. This whole experience has reminded me of how powerful our voices can be, even in moments of vulnerability. As the days went by, Lily continued to receive messages from people inspired by her story, and the mall's new training programs began to take shape. The management brought in diversity and inclusion consultants to design and implement the workshops. These sessions covered everything from recognizing implicit biases to understanding the impact of discrimination. The training also emphasized the importance of empathy, compassion, and treating all customers with dignity. Lily was invited to observe one of the initial training sessions, and while she was initially hesitant, Michael encouraged her. "This is your story, Lily," he reminded her. "Your presence there could mean a lot, not just to the staff but to everyone involved in this change." With Michael's support, Lily attended the session. She entered the conference room where the training was held, her heart pounding as she faced a room filled with mall employees, including Ryan Fletcher. He was seated in the back, his gaze downcast, his usual arrogant posture replaced by a subdued demeanor. Lily felt a surge of mixed emotions seeing him there. The man who had humiliated her was now required to face the consequences of his actions and confront his own biases. The session began with an introduction from the trainer, who spoke about the importance of respectful treatment in customer service. The trainer then invited Lily to share her story with the group. Taking a deep breath, Lily stepped to the front of the room, her voice steady as she recounted her experience. She didn't dwell on the details of the humiliation. Instead, she focused on the broader impact, on the importance of kindness and respect. When we walk into a store, a restaurant, or any place of business, we're not just customers. We're people, she said, her gaze sweeping over the room. We bring with us our dreams, our struggles, our triumphs, and our pain. All we ask is to be treated with the same dignity and respect that anyone else would expect. As she spoke, she noticed Ryan shifting uncomfortably in his seat. She could tell that he was deeply affected, though she wasn't sure if it was regret or shame that fueled his discomfort. She hoped it was a mix of both. This wasn't about revenge. It was about growth, about ensuring that no one else would have to experience the humiliation she had endured. After the session, several employees approached her, thanking her for her courage and expressing their own reflections on the training. Lily listened to each person, feeling a sense of connection and understanding that transcended the anger and pain she'd initially felt. In that moment, she realized that healing wasn't just about justice. It was about bridging gaps, building empathy, and creating spaces where everyone felt seen and valued. In the weeks that followed, Lily's influence continued to ripple out. The store where the incident had occurred saw an increase in foot traffic as people came in support of the changes that Lily's experience had sparked. The management team embraced the positive attention and even took it a step further by partnering with local organizations that promoted diversity and equity in the workplace. One day, as Lily browsed through her emails, she noticed a message from a news outlet requesting an interview. The journalist explained that they wanted to highlight her story as part of a series on women who had used their personal struggles to drive social change. Lily hesitated, unsure if she wanted to revisit the painful experience on such a public platform. But Michael encouraged her, reminding her of the impact her voice had already had on others. After some thought, she agreed to the interview. During the conversation, she shared not only the story of the incident, but also the journey that had followed, the messages of support, the mall's training initiatives, and the impact on the community. The journalist listened intently, moved by the story of resilience and transformation. At the end of the interview, the journalist asked her, "What would you say to someone who is going through something similar? Someone who feels powerless in the face of discrimination?" Lily thought for a moment before answering, her voice filled with conviction. "I would tell them that they're not alone and that their voice matters. Standing up isn't easy, and it's often scary. But when we speak out, we give others the courage to do the same. Change doesn't happen overnight, but every small act of courage adds up. Together, we can create a world where everyone is treated with the respect they deserve." The article was published a few days later, and it quickly went viral. People across the country shared her words, and the story became a symbol of hope and resilience. It wasn't just about retail discrimination anymore. It had become a story about human dignity, about the importance of standing up for oneself and others. One morning, as Lily checked her social media, she received a surprising message from Ryan. She hesitated before opening it, unsure of what to expect. In his message, Ryan expressed a profound apology, acknowledging the pain he had caused and admitting that he had never truly understood the impact of his actions until he was forced to confront them through the training. "I was wrong, and I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know that I'm committed to changing," he wrote. "Your courage and dignity have made me realize the harm I've caused, and I'm sorry for everything." Lily took a deep breath, feeling a wave of unexpected compassion. She knew that change wasn't easy, but she also knew that this journey was about more than just punishment. It was about transformation. With a thoughtful response, she replied, encouraging him to continue his growth and to use his position to uplift others rather than tear them down. As she closed her phone, she felt a sense of peace. The pain of that day had been real, and the journey to justice had been challenging, but now she saw the purpose in her struggle. She had planted seeds of change, not just in one store, but in the hearts of countless people who had heard her story. Her pain had been transformed into strength, her humiliation into empowerment, and her silence into a powerful, unwavering voice. And as she looked toward the future, Lily knew that this was only the beginning. Her story had become a beacon, a reminder that every person deserved dignity and respect. And as long as she had breath, she would continue to stand for that truth, for herself, for her community, and for all those who felt unseen and unheard. Months had passed since the incident at the upscale mall, but the story of Lily's resilience continued to resonate. The public's attention hadn't waned. Instead, her story had become a symbol of empowerment and resistance against prejudice. As Lily looked back on everything that had happened, she was both humbled and inspired by the journey. The mall management kept their promise and implemented comprehensive customer service reforms. Reports started coming in from shoppers and employees alike, describing a noticeable improvement in the store atmosphere. The initiative was praised in business magazines as a model of corporate responsibility, and the mall's reputation transformed. The incident with Ryan Fletcher was no longer a stain on their brand, but a catalyst for their evolution. But the changes weren't confined to the mall. Lily's story had reached national news, sparking discussions in corporate boardrooms, universities, and community forums. People everywhere were talking about the power of respect and the importance of accountability. Civil rights organizations invited Lily to speak at events, asking her to share her experience and insights on promoting dignity and inclusivity in everyday interactions. Lily, always driven to make a positive impact, accepted these invitations, though she knew that each time she spoke, it meant revisiting that painful day. In one such event, hosted by a prominent social justice organization, Lily stood before a packed auditorium. The room was silent as she spoke, recounting her experience with poise and honesty. She described not only the humiliation she had felt that day, but also the determination that had led her to seek justice. "For too long," she said, her voice echoing through the hall, "many of us have been made to feel small, as though we don't belong. But the truth is, every person deserves to be treated with respect and dignity. When we stand up against discrimination, we are reclaiming our worth, and we are paving the way for others to do the same." After her speech, the audience erupted into applause. As people lined up to shake her hand, Lily felt a renewed sense of purpose. She realized that her story had transcended her personal experience. It had become a vehicle for change. One of the people who approached her was a young woman named Jasmine, a college student who had traveled hours just to hear Lily speak. Jasmine shared a story of her own encounter with discrimination, her voice trembling with emotion. "I felt so powerless," Jasmine admitted, tears brimming in her eyes. "But when I heard about what you did, it gave me hope. You showed me that it's okay to stand up for myself, even when it feels impossible." Moved by Jasmine's words, Lily hugged her tightly. She had started out wanting to restore her own dignity, but now she was helping others reclaim theirs. She knew that Jasmine's story was just one of many. Countless individuals had endured similar experiences, often in silence. Lily's mission had evolved from seeking justice for herself to empowering a community, to showing others that they, too, could rise above adversity. As Lily continued her advocacy, she collaborated with civil rights groups to create workshops on dignity and respect in public spaces. She worked with universities and community centers to host seminars aimed at teaching people how to advocate for themselves, sharing practical steps for confronting discrimination while maintaining one's composure and dignity. Meanwhile, the mall's management reached out to her with an unexpected proposal. Inspired by the reforms her case had initiated, they wanted to partner with her to create a new initiative, a program called Respect in Retail. The initiative aimed to foster respectful customer interactions in stores nationwide, providing training for both staff and management on recognizing and addressing implicit bias. With a focus on real-life scenarios and empathy exercises, the program sought to shift perspectives and encourage inclusivity. Initially, Lily was hesitant. Partnering with the same mall where she had faced such humiliation felt complicated. But Michael, ever her steadfast supporter, reminded her of the broader impact she could have. "You've already made a difference here, Lily. Think about the lives you'll change by helping to bring this initiative to life." After careful consideration, Lily agreed. She threw herself into the project, collaborating with a team of experts to design a curriculum that addressed the complex nature of discrimination in retail environments. The workshops included role-playing exercises, empathy-building activities, and discussions on the importance of respecting diverse backgrounds. Ryan Fletcher, the very salesman who had humiliated her, was required to attend the program as part of his continued employment at the mall. While Lily initially felt a pang of discomfort knowing he'd be part of the workshops, she also recognized it as an opportunity for him to confront his actions and hopefully grow from them. At the first Respect in Retail workshop, Ryan sat in the back, noticeably uncomfortable. The training facilitator guided the group through discussions on the harmful impact of biased assumptions, encouraging everyone to reflect on their experiences and the perspectives of others. When it came time for open discussion, one of the participants, a young woman named Clara, bravely shared her own story of facing discrimination as a customer. Her words stirred the group, and many nodded in understanding. Clara's story had a visible impact on Ryan, who shifted uncomfortably, clearly grappling with his own role in perpetuating similar experiences. After the session ended, Ryan approached Lily. He looked humbled, his usual arrogance replaced by a quiet resolve. "I wanted to say, I'm sorry, Lily," he said, his voice subdued. "I know it doesn't make up for what I did, but I realize now how wrong I was. I thought I understood people, but I was only seeing what I wanted to see. Thank you for giving me a chance to change." Lily listened, her expression softened but guarded. She could see that he was genuinely remorseful, and while forgiveness was difficult, she understood that growth required grace. "Change takes time, Ryan," she replied. "It's not easy, but if you're committed, you can make a difference, not just for yourself, but for everyone you interact with." Ryan nodded, visibly affected by her words. That encounter, while brief, symbolized a turning point in her journey. Lily wasn't just influencing change from a distance. She was witnessing transformation up close, seeing the ripple effect of her actions in real time. As the Respect in Retail program gained traction, other businesses began to take notice. Soon, retail chains across the country were adopting similar training programs, using Lily's initiative as a model. Her story continued to be featured in the media, celebrated as an example of how one person's courage could catalyze a cultural shift. Throughout all of this, Lily remained grounded, never losing sight of the personal impact her journey had on those closest to her. Michael, who had been her unwavering support, watched her with pride, knowing how deeply her story had touched the lives of others. Together, they continued to speak out, often attending events as a team, showing the strength that came from standing united. One evening, as they were relaxing at home, Lily received a letter from a high school student named Zoe. Zoe shared how she had been bullied for her appearance, and how Lily's story had inspired her to stand up to her tormentors. Thank you for showing me that my voice matters, Zoe wrote. Because of you, I'm not afraid to be myself anymore. As Lily read Zoe's words, she felt a wave of emotions. The journey she had embarked on to reclaim her dignity had turned into something far greater, a movement of self-respect and resilience. Her experience had empowered not only herself but countless others to find strength in their own voices. Reflecting on the impact she'd made, Lily knew her journey was far from over. The work she had started continued to grow, and with each new voice that joined the chorus, the world inched closer to a place of greater understanding and respect. Her story had ignited a flame, a beacon of hope for anyone who had ever felt unseen or unheard. And as long as she had the strength, she would continue to fan that flame, helping others find the courage to stand tall, just as she had. Years had passed since that fateful day in the mall, but Lily's impact had only grown. Her story had become part of a much larger movement, inspiring people across the country to confront discrimination and demand respect in all aspects of life. The Respect in Retail initiative had expanded into Respect in Society, a nationwide program aimed at fostering inclusivity, empathy, and understanding in workplaces, schools, and public spaces. Lily's efforts had transformed her into a recognized voice in the fight against prejudice, but she had never let the fame change her. She remained grounded, guided by the same principles of dignity and empathy that had first motivated her to speak up. In interviews and public appearances, she spoke not only about her experience, but about the need for change on a systemic level, emphasizing the importance of education and accountability in creating a fairer world. One summer evening, as she and Michael were preparing for a major speaking event, their now teenage daughter, Maya, walked into the room. Maya had grown up watching her mother turn pain into purpose, and though she didn't often speak about it, Lily knew her daughter was proud. "Mama," Maya began, her voice hesitant but determined. "I have a project for school, and it's about someone who's made a difference in the world. I'd like to talk about you." Lily felt a lump form in her throat. She hadn't realized how closely Maya had been watching her journey, how much her actions had shaped the young woman her daughter was becoming. "Of course, honey," she said softly, her heart swelling with pride. "But remember, this isn't just my story. It's about everyone who's ever faced unfairness and found the strength to stand up." Maya nodded, her eyes bright with admiration. "I know, Mama. That's why I want to share it. I want everyone at school to know what's possible when you don't back down." Later that week, Lily attended Maya's school presentation. She sat in the back of the classroom, watching as her daughter spoke with poise and conviction, recounting not just her mother's experience, but the larger mission that had come out of it. Maya told her classmates about the importance of self-respect, the courage to stand against injustice, and the power of compassion in changing people's lives. "My mom didn't just fight for herself," Maya concluded, her voice steady. "She fought for everyone who has ever been made to feel less than they are. And because of her, I know I can stand up for myself too." Lily's eyes filled with tears as the students applauded Maya's presentation. She realized that her legacy wasn't only about the changes in society. It was about the example she had set for her daughter and future generations. She knew that no matter how far her advocacy reached, this, her daughter's belief in herself, was her greatest achievement. The following month, Lily received an invitation from a prestigious university, requesting her to deliver a keynote address at their annual graduation ceremony. She accepted, understanding the profound responsibility and opportunity that lay before her. She spent days preparing her speech, determined to leave the graduates with a message that would resonate in their hearts and guide them as they embarked on their own journeys. On the day of the ceremony, the auditorium was filled with thousands of students, their families, and faculty members. As Lily walked onto the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. She stood at the podium, looking out at the sea of faces before her, young men and women on the brink of their futures, eager to make their mark on the world. "Today," she began, her voice calm but powerful, "I want to talk to you about courage." Not the kind that you see in movies or read about in books, but the quiet, everyday courage that it takes to stand up for yourself and others. The kind of courage that doesn't always come with applause, that sometimes comes with fear and discomfort, but that ultimately leads to growth and change. She told them about her experience in the mall, the humiliation and the anger, but more importantly, she told them about the choice she had made to turn that pain into purpose. In that moment, I realized that the way others treat us does not define who we are. Our response to injustice, our commitment to dignity, that is what defines us. The audience was silent, captivated by her words. Each of you has a voice, she continued, a voice that matters, a voice that can make a difference. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small. Don't let prejudice, ignorance, or hate silence you. Stand tall, not just for yourself, but for everyone who looks up to you. For those who may not have found their voice yet, be the change you wish to see, because change doesn't start in boardrooms or courtrooms. It starts right here, with you. As she concluded her speech, the audience rose to their feet, their applause thunderous. Many were moved to tears, and Lily could see that her words had struck a chord. This was more than just a speech. It was a call to action, a reminder that each person had the power to shape a kinder, fairer world. After the ceremony, a young man approached her. He introduced himself as Malik, a recent law school graduate who had been inspired by her story to pursue civil rights law. "I just want to say thank you," he said, his voice filled with emotion. "Your journey gave me the courage to believe that I could make a difference. I want to fight for justice, just like you." Lily smiled, deeply moved. She had become a beacon of hope, not just for people like Malik, but for anyone willing to stand up for what was right. As she walked out of the university that day, she felt a profound sense of fulfillment, knowing that her story had become a catalyst for change, a reminder that every act of courage could inspire countless others. In the years that followed, Lily continued to advocate for respect and inclusivity. She became a mentor, guiding young activists and law students, sharing her knowledge and experiences, and supporting them as they pursued their own paths to justice. Through her mentorship program, countless individuals found guidance, strength, and a community committed to making a difference. Lily's legacy became a powerful movement that transcended her personal experience. Respect in society evolved into a network of initiatives aimed at addressing discrimination in schools, workplaces, and public institutions. And although she knew there would always be challenges, she took comfort in knowing that she had helped lay the foundation for a brighter, more compassionate world. As her life continued, Lily occasionally revisited the mall where it had all started. She would walk through the store, looking at the mannequins and displays, her mind drifting back to that painful day. But now, the memory no longer filled her with sadness or anger. Instead, she felt pride, a quiet satisfaction in knowing that she had turned that moment of humiliation into a lifetime of impact. One afternoon, as she was leaving the mall, she noticed a young woman struggling with a large bag. Lily walked over and offered a helping hand, sharing a warm smile. The young woman, who looked up at her with gratitude, didn't recognize Lily, but that didn't matter. Lily knew that kindness, respect, and understanding were woven into the fabric of her life now. Her journey had come full circle. The impact she had made, the lives she had touched, had left an indelible mark, not just on society, but on every individual who had been inspired by her courage. As Lily walked away from the mall that day, her heart was light. She understood that true power didn't come from titles, status, or wealth, but from the courage to stand up for oneself and for others. Her story, once filled with pain, had become a powerful testament to resilience, compassion, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. And so, Lily's legacy lived on, not just in the programs she had founded or the speeches she had delivered, but in the countless acts of kindness, respect, and courage that she had inspired in others. Her life had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest moments, we have the power to create light.